to look at the inserts in the bulletin and find this one with the spot and the log. And if you haven't, maybe take it out now and see if this works for you. I got in a terrible fight with the office staff this week because they said, no, it doesn't work, and then I had to tell them how to do it right. You hold this page out in front of you and line up the dot with your right eye, and then you close your left eye and slowly bring the page in, and at some point, the log over on the other side disappears. Now, I'm not going to ask if you were successful. And don't hit the person in front of you as you're stretching your arm out. If it doesn't work right now, please take that home with you and try it at home. it should work. And as it says on the little insert, the reason why it works is that in each of our eyeballs, there is a place where the optic nerve joins the eyeball, and at that point, there are no photoreceptors. So it is a point where you don't see anything. And normally you don't notice it because one eye compensates for the blind spot of the other, but also because your eyes are constantly moving. And the most amazing thing happens is, even though there is a blind spot, and with me it's over here somewhere, you don't see it because your brain fills in what it thinks should be there. Sort of like Photoshop with that background fill-in. It's just like that. Your brain assumes that something is there and puts it in. Absolutely amazing. But it does demonstrate the fact that we have two blind spots, and we struggle through life with them, mostly without noticing them. Jesus points out to us in the story this morning that we have blind spots also in a spiritual sense. The first blind spot we have is this: we are blind very frequently to our own faults and our own sins. We do not see them, which is a strange thing, since our capacity for seeing the sin of other people is really quite highly developed. The other blind spot we have is that we cannot see the pain and the suffering of other people, which again is amazing because our capacity to see our own pain is really quite acute. Whenever I do marriage counseling, I use this illustration based on Jesus in Matthew 7:3 saying, "Why do you pick the speck out of your brother's eye, or out of your spouse's eye, perhaps in this case, when there is a whole log in your own eye?" And you might just think that that's the old wisdom of God, but it's something that's based upon sound psychological principles, in that when two people get into an argument with each other, even if, for example, I'm arguing with you, if I am 95% to blame for what has gone wrong, and you are only 5% to blame for what has gone wrong, I will be blind to my contribution to the trouble, but I will see your 5% and I will magnify it so it becomes the whole source of the problem. It's a psychological defense mechanism that we all have to protect our frail and broken ego. The ego is such a weak and sickly thing, it cannot stand to bear guilt or to internalize accountability. And so your ego will do anything to blame everybody else for whatever is wrong. So the next time you get into a fight with somebody, whether it's your spouse or someone else, say to yourself, I wonder if that automatic defense mechanism has kicked in for me. And maybe I need to step back and see that I too am in the wrong. It might be a very healing, if difficult, experience for you. The story which gives us the sense of how we are blind comes from John 9, verses 1 to 12 this morning, in which Jesus heals the man who was born blind. And in the act of doing that, first of all, he counters the question of the Pharisees who say, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? You see, if you can write off sickness or poverty as God's punishment to others, then you don't have to be compassionate, or you don't have to try to help them. You simply say, that person is sick or poor or hungry because God wants them to be sick, therefore I have no obligation to help. It's a beautiful way to get out of your responsibility for the needs of other human beings. But Jesus said, sickness is not God's punishment towards anyone. If there is any sickness in the world, it is an opportunity for God's love and God's light to be shown to that person through the actions of others. Jesus heals the man with a paste made of dirt and spittle. It seems strange to use spittle to perform this miracle, and yet by this point in history, spittle was commonly used for eye ailments. So Jesus wasn't doing anything that was strange. Of course, it happens to be the Sabbath day, and so the Pharisees are angry, saying that Jesus has healed and thus done work on the Sabbath. They make a fuss about it. They investigate the man. They investigate his parents. They are filled with great anger. The real message of the story is not just the physical healing of the blind man. It is what Jesus says in verses 40 and 41 of the same chapter. In the end of that argument he has with the Pharisees, when he points out to them, my real concern is your spiritual blindness. Just to be physically blind, he says, is a difficult thing. But if you are spiritually blind, you cannot see who you really are and who God really is, then you have a far more serious problem. And I want to talk about our spiritual blindness today, how we are blind to those two things, our own faults and the pain and suffering of others. Firstly, with respect to our blindness towards our own faults, it comes about quite naturally. Each one of us is raised within a certain context. And as we grow older, we begin to think that the context in which we were raised is normal. And we therefore think that our way of thinking is normal, and our way of doing things is normal, and if anyone thinks or acts differently than us, they are strange. They are weird. There's something wrong with them because we're normal, and we do not see the fact that we might have been raised with a set of assumptions that are really strange. And my goodness, maybe we are the one who is odd and out of tune with reality. It's a very painful and sad thing to have to accept. I want to tell you a little bit about how I went through a process of realizing that I was strange. I only ask that you don't laugh too much. Very simple thing, when I was in grade 2, I remember we were having a multicultural day. And of course I was raised in a context where everyone was white. And the teacher gave us a sheet of paper and told us we were going to color in all the people on a piece of paper and all the different colors that people come in. And I thought that was wonderful. I colored people in different colors. And then I was called upon to go to the front of the class and show my picture. And I was so proud. And I said, look, we have people who are black, and some who have brown skin, and some who have yellow skin, and some have red skin, and some have olive-colored skin. And then I said, and here are some normal people. And I remember the teacher saying to me, Mark, hold on for a second. Mark, you said those nice sort of pinky people are normal people. Mark, they're all normal people. Which brings us to my second difficulty. I have at times in my life been incredibly stubborn and pig-headed. And I recall that day in grade 2 saying to my teacher, no, we are normal. All the other people are strange and different. We are normal. And I argued with that teacher, and I forget what the outcome of the argument was, but it did take me some time after that to understand what the teacher was saying. Normal is not just the context in which you were raised. All human beings are normal. All skin colors are normal. And we need to recognize that our way is not the only way. You know, it's always tremendously funny when someone comes here from another country and we listen to them talk, and we say, wow, do you ever have a funny accent? Eh? And you have to realize that when you go into a different context, you are the strange person. You are the one who is out of step. So we need to take that first step in seeing ourselves clearly, and that is to see that we are not normal. We belong to a particular culture that is strange and unique and weird, and we need to see that other people are just as normal or just as strange as we are. The other great obstacle that I have had in life, and the other personality trait that is most difficult for me, is my terrible tendency to want to organize and control everything. When I was a little child, I remember gathering with my friends to play with our toy cars. And I would always want to line the cars up and organize the cars, either according to their color or their size or their function. All the red cars here, all the race cars here, all the construction cars here. And once I got all the cars arranged like that, my friends would say, now let's play with them. And I would go, no! No, I don't want to play with them. I've just got them lined up. And the arguments I would have with my friends that once things were organized, they should just be left alone. Don't mess them up. I liked having control over those things. I had my first church when I was 21 years old, and I wanted to control everything in that church. And so I began to make all the decisions, and I began to do everything. And finally, an elderly minister who had some connection with that church took me aside and said, Mark, for the love of mercy, what are you doing? And I said, I'm doing great with this church. Look at the progress that we're making, and I'm making all these great decisions. And they said, but Mark, you're supposed to let the session make the decisions. And I said, I don't need to let the session make the decisions because I know what's right. It's great to be 21 and to know absolutely everything. Slowly through my life, I have come to realize that I am pig-headed and stubborn and controlling. Thanks to the input of very gracious people who have taken me aside and said, Mark, hold on just for a minute, please. I recall the first house in which Donna and I lived. And I wanted to decorate every room, and I did. I painted and I wallpapered. It was beautiful. And when I was finished, I thought that Donna would thank me. Oh, you know where this is going. Donna was mad at me. And I said, I did all this work. I said, look, I decorated every room. She was mad at me. I said, how come you're mad? And she said, well, you never asked me about anything. And I said, I didn't need to. I have such good taste. Donna's not here today. You can ask her about that next Sunday. And she will roll her eyes and says, oh yeah, he's not making that up. Whenever Donna and I go on a trip somewhere, we stay in a hotel. Even if we're going to get up and leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, as soon as I get out of bed in a hotel room, I have to make the bed. I cannot be in a room with an unmade bed. It drives me insane. And Donna stands there looking at me and said, why are you making the bed? We're leaving. I said, I can't be in here for 10 seconds. I have come to recognize that I'm very strange. That I am stubborn and pig-headed and controlling. And that those things could possibly be an impediment in many different aspects of life. Now, I'm going to say this to you. You're laughing, oh, this is really funny. Mark is so weird. I'm not telling you these stories so you know how weird I am. I'm telling you these stories so that you can begin to reflect on your own life and your own actions and say to yourself, in what ways am I weird? In what ways am I strange and different and odd? What fatal flaws do I have that might be preventing me from living my life to the fullest? And until you are able to see your own flaws and your own strangeness, you are blind. And you are not really living your life. The other blind spot, the suffering of others. In the story this morning, the Pharisees could not feel the suffering of the blind man. They could not feel his joy that now he could see. All that they could see was that a law had been broken according to their mindset. The law about healing on the Sabbath. That was more important to them than that man's suffering. And when they went to question the man about it, he probably knew about the law too, but his response was, look, he said, I don't know who the guy was who healed me. I don't know why he healed me on the Sabbath, but I was blind and now I see. Joy. I was healed. And the Pharisees couldn't see that. They were blind to his suffering and blind to his joy. The law became more important to them than compassion. And because of that, they developed a theology which said that if you were sick or suffering or poor or lonely or outcast, it was because that's how God wanted you to be, because God was angry with you. And in that way, they could keep their blind spot and not have to see the sickness and suffering of others. We need to see the suffering of others, as painful as that is. If we ourselves are sick with a bad cold or the flu, the suffering is front and foremost. But we do not recognize that every day 30,000 children die of hunger. That does not affect us so much as a cold or the flu or a nasty headache. We have great vision for our own suffering. We are blind to the suffering of others. And Jesus Christ constantly says to us, open your eyes, you are blind, see the suffering of the hungry and the broken. And when we do that, then we engage in mission with new enthusiasm and new compassion and new love and grace. I hope you will do that. Why is it so hard for us to open our eyes and see? It's hard for us to see our own sin, our own weakness, and our own strangeness because the human ego is so frail and so weak. We are afraid that if we internalize guilt, it will kill us. But the truth of the matter is this: internalizing guilt does not kill you, it makes you stronger and better. If someone criticizes you, do not put up a wall to defend yourself against their criticism. It may well be that their criticism is exactly what we want to hear. I know there have been times in my life when if anyone dared to criticize me, I made an assumption that that person fit into one of three categories. Either they were evil, or insane, or just plain stupid. I have come to recognize that sometimes people criticize you out of love and grace. And that the people who criticize you or me are intelligent, compassionate, faithful. If you internalize what they have to say, it doesn't kill you. It connects you to them at a deep level. And it strengthens you. And it opens your eyes to your faults that you would rather not see. It connects us to others. And ultimately, as we realize more and more how weak and strange and broken and sinful we are, we become connected to God through Jesus Christ on the cross of Calvary. Because if there is anything in the world that speaks to how broken and sinful we are, it is the man on the cross who had to die because of our brokenness and our sin. If you can accept the cross of Calvary, you can accept any hurtful input that comes your way, and it will not hurt you. Accept the fact of your own strangeness and brokenness. Accept the fact of the pain of others and dedicate your life to being compassionate and easing that pain. And if you can do those two things, then your two blind spots will have been cleared up substantially. The light will shine in your life. The light even of Christ. In a few moments we're going to sing a hymn, number 199, and the first verse of 199 says, "If I have been a source of pain." And when I sing that, I always want to take out the word "if" and the phrase "source of," and sing out to God, "I have been a pain." You can sing all the words if you want. Let the light shine on you. Do not be afraid of it. Understand your brokenness and see the hurt of others. You will see a new world and a new self. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.